welcome to the latest success story episode here on Inspired Coach Podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to be sharing with you today a wonderful guest. Her name is Carla Da Costa, and she has been a part of the Beautiful You Coaching Academy alumni now for more than 10 years. She wasn't a part of our pilot group, but almost an OG, very, very close to being one. And I know that Carla has so much to share with you in this episode ahead. Let's get to know her a bit better. Carla Da Costa is a life after divorce coach, creative entrepreneur, business owner, author, and leading modern voice on marriage dissolution. Through her private coaching practice, online programs, her book, and range of Divorce Like a Queen products, Carla has empowered countless individuals worldwide on their love journey after a marriage ends. And you can find her at carladacosta.com. I love this interview with Carla ahead for a number of different reasons. I am going to leave it open to you to hear about Carla's particular journey into becoming a life after divorce coach. But there's a couple of very special things that I would love to draw your attention to as inspirations ahead in this episode. And one of those is about Carla's message that she had to learn very, very early on, that she was at a different life stage and experience to many of the people that she was studying with. And this inspired her, instead of comparing herself to them, to actually do the opposite of that and not do that and not compare her timeline of growth to anyone else's. Magic. Love it. And also, Carla speaks about the fact that very early, both during her training and after her training to become a life coach, she actually realized that before she could hold really great space as a coach for clients and begin to invest the time, effort, and energy into growing her business, she came to the personal understanding and reckoning that she had some work to do on herself personally. And I deeply admire Carla for sharing that part of her journey with us ahead. Enjoy this wonderful success story with Carla Da Costa. Carla Da Costa, it is such a pleasure to have you on Inspired Coach Podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie.
Carla, we are here to talk about your wonderful success story as a coach. And you've been coaching for more than a decade now, like a little bit over a decade. Yes, I know. I saw that face. That's my face too when I say mine's been more than 2 decades. I'm like, what? How old are you, girl? It goes by so fast. And Carla, I would just love for you to take us back to the very beginning of the Carla coaching story and tell us what was happening in your life when you first started to have some kind of inkling or feeling that you might have liked to have become a life coach.
Yes, I know. So I was in your second intake in 2015, and I was in a really stellar group with Tracy Spencer and Hella Weston, who does breathwork now. And so I was in this really amazing group of feels like the OG group sometimes when I talk to Tracy, because I'm quite close with Tracy. But so when I came to you in 2015, I was very new to the coaching world. I really had very little experience. I'd never worked with my own coach, but I did have a blog and I was enjoying writing and creativity, and I was falling back into my own passion, finding my own thing again. I had 2 daughters under the age of 4 at the time. And, when you sort of come up for air after being through that very intense mothering young children, you do lose yourself a little bit. And so I was definitely going through that process. My marriage was not in a great space. I would say I wasn't in a great space in terms of myself. And so I just found myself in the blog-hearted group with Rachel McDonald. And I found myself surrounded by something I had never heard of before, which was life coaches. And I started reading their content. A lot of them was really inspiring to me. And I don't know how I found Beautiful You Coaching Academy, but that is how I came to find you. I think I took the second or the last spot in that 2015 uptake that I entered. And so I entered life coaching very naive to what it was, but I just had this burning desire to help other people. But it was very humbling for me because I was naive to the process. And so I joined the coaching program, but then realized that perhaps I needed to help myself first before I could help anybody else. And so it went from wanting to start a business to actually having to have a look at myself first and my own life and make my own changes. And you know, when I graduated in 2015, I had Tracy Spencer, and you know, they sort of graduated and boom, they took off in their business. But I had to do something else. I graduated and then I asked for a divorce, and so I had to go through the bomb site of my own personal growth and life and transcend all of that, grow out of that before I could start a business. And so I've had a very personal journey to create a business rather than a professional one. I have not built a business from having, funnels and wonderful opt-ins or anything like that. I created those things after I already had a business to cope with the business that I kind of already had. So I've had this my business has been very much a personal growth journey, and a very accidental one, because when I came to you in 2015, I wasn't planning on getting a divorce or thinking that that was going to be my journey. But that is what ended up happening, that as I grew, the things that were not meant for me anymore could no longer embrace me, and I had to let go of them to just step into myself again. And so it's been a very unexpected journey.
Carla, there is so much goodness in there. I've got about 57 questions that are now floating in my mind. The first thing that I want to say is I remember your cohort of coaches with such passionate love and joy. You were a bunch of firecrackers, let me tell you. And so many of you have gone on to incredible success, and it's just a complete joy, wondrous joy for me to see. It's fantastic. There were some incredible people in that group. And I absolutely love what you have mentioned here, is that as you were beginning to explore your own personal world after becoming a mother, which we know is an enormous rite of passage that does change us in so many different ways, you were simultaneously thinking to yourself you'd like to help people. But I absolutely love that somewhere your own level of emotional intelligence and maturity was fine-tuned enough to be able to tell you, actually, before we do this, we've got some work to do. Yeah. And I love that, Carla, so much, because what it shows me is your deep commitment to making yourself as safe and trustworthy and attuned to you as you could be for the wonderful clients that you wanted to hold space for. And I can only imagine that it must have been quite stretching and challenging for you. Of course, divorce is not an easy thing at all, even if it's something we know that it's in our best interests for. To have been going through that while seeing your peers just kind of out there hitting the ground running.
Well, I recognised really on that we were in different life seasons. And so I actually never had a negative story attached to that, and I didn't ever have I never had a timeline attached to my journey either. I think that, looking back, has been also a strength of mine. I recognise that, like I said, in 2015, 2016, I had no plans to be a divorce coach. My my thing I was saying at the time was that I wanted to work and empower women in their life. That was what I was wanting to do. And so there was no recognition that the journey that I needed to go on was going to become, my medicine that I would give to others. But I just recognised that I was in a different season to these girls. I had children, I had a mortgage, I had a husband that was now an ex-husband, I had different things to navigate. And when you are walking that path, it's a different journey to build a business. I can't go and live in a single room in Bali and claim to be, fully self-sufficient off my coaching income if I have 2 children that need netball fees paid and I need to have a 3-bedroom house in the school zone. Like the journey to sort of replacing my income after I left my marriage was a dance. It was a juggle, and so I just I never compared. I guess that's the thing. I was always very happy for them. I could see that they were able to go like that, but I could see that I had to just traverse things first. And, it is a benefit to my business now because the spectrum of client that I can hold now is very broad.
Yes.
Because I've been through all of that growth now. And so I had my explosion later on compared to theirs. And I'm very close with Tracy. I've worked with Tracy. I kind of worked with her at the intersection where my business was exploding and hers was going through a rebalance because she was about to become a mum. That season and cycle that just happens as an individual as you're going through life. And so I just never had a negative story attached to it.
Did you hear that, everybody? Don't compare yourself to others. Don't set a timeline with this. Don't be hard and fast about what has to happen or what success looks like. Honour yourself with your seasons. We can stop recording now, Carla. You've done your job with this episode today. Such wisdom.
I had somebody probably 8 months ago. She would have been in her mid to late 20s, and she reached out to me and she said, I didn't know her. She said to me, wow, you've really landed on a profitable niche. Can I ask where you studied to become a divorce coach? Now I had a click. This girl had clearly never been married, let alone get a divorce.
Okay.
I looked at this message in my inbox and I kind of, to be honest, I got a little bit annoyed because there are some things in life, I personally believe, that you cannot coach on if you have not been through it yourself. That is the school of life. I could have read as many books as I wanted to, but until I transcend the role of servitude that I find myself stuck in, living the passenger seat of my own life because I handed all my power over to somebody else, until you transcend all of that, my personal belief is that it's very hard to coach somebody on something that you have not overcome yourself. And so that is, my 10-year journey, but it's also my magic. It's why work for me is kind of quite easy, and it's also why I'm so deeply passionate about it.
Yeah, beautiful. So, Carla, you talk about your medicine, and we all have different forms of medicine, and some of that medicine comes from external life experiences that we would never necessarily have wanted to happen for us. We become a survivor of something. We become, somebody that has overcome something. And then sometimes we also must recognise that there is medicine that lives inside of us just because of who we are, regardless of whatever it is that we may have experienced in life. But somewhere along the line, the experience of going through a divorce has become a part of your life medicine. Right at the intersection where you had just studied to become a coach. And so tell us a little bit about that decision that you made of both simultaneously being in and working through that really challenging lifetime, but then once you're on the other side of it going, actually, I can see myself continuing to have conversations with people about this, because of course for some people they would go through a divorce and go, I never want to see or talk about that ever again.
Look, I definitely, so I'm currently, my house is in the process of being sold, and the woman that came through to look at it, she's like, oh wow, there's a lot of divorce stuff around here. divorce books, and I'm like, no, I'm happily moved on. It's just my work now, Like,
Yeah.
what are we talking about? But yes, it was, like I said, it was very accidental. I would say to you that the only thing that was divorce related in my journey was I knew I had a book in me that I wanted to write. And that was in 2017. I knew I had a book in me to write. I just moved out of the family home after selling everything up like you do when you're financially separating. And I had a book in me, but I knew I wasn't ready to write it. And so I was actually coaching more in health and confidence space from about 2017 to about 2020. And I shifted in 2020 because everybody kept coming to me. They might have been coming to me for confidence or coming to me for health, but actually they were thinking about leaving their marriage on the underbelly of it. Or they had left their marriage and they were now looking to find themselves again. So they were watching my journey and being inspired by my kind of comeback, I guess, after my marriage had ended. And so shifting into using the divorce coach niche or name was based on who was coming to me already as a client. I shifted to accommodate what I was attracting. And then I wrote that book in 2021, and that really solidified my message. And so from that point on, I just niched right down because it's what I was already talking about. But it has evolved again because it's now 2025. And I got a divorce in 2017. So you're right, I'm a little bit tired of talking about it, but I still desire to help people in the space. And, I have a good relationship with my ex-husband. He would say to you he's tired of being part of my marketing. I don't even talk about him anymore.
Sure. I can, tricky.
She asked for a divorce and then she's still talking about it after 10 years, He got his karma with me. But so I'm now in an evolving space of seeing myself more as a healer of hearts. My desire is to move people towards love for self, and actually a truly loving, healthy relationship. And I happen to attract people at the portal of leaving a marriage or having left a marriage that wasn't healthy. So I've had to reword that for myself so that I'm no longer using that language anymore because it's not relevant with my life and where I am. And my business has been a personal growth journey. So as I evolve, so must it evolve with me. So I'm in that pivot point of still being in the space, but just kind of reworking it to work with where I'm at in myself at the moment.
And that's so important, Carla, because you can't have been doing coaching in any form for more than a decade. And if you were still the person that you were, if any of us are still the person that we were more than 10 years ago, that probably begs a look. It
came up for me when I entered the year, actually, this after having a break over Christmas, that all of a sudden it felt very inauthentic and unaligned with me to talk about divorce and marriages ending in the way that I was, because my audience may have still wanted that and resonated with it, but I was now so far removed from that kind of conversation. And so that was really the shift. It was the break away from having to be in that little bubble and just be in my own personal life over Christmas, New Year's. And then when I entered back in, I was like, right, I've got to shift this. This has got to change up because otherwise I'm going to lose my passion. My posts, my work is not going to have the same energy behind it. I don't batch create my content. I create my content based on how I feel in the moment or how I can feel things are shifting for people around me. And so you have to have your own energy behind that. It has to be authentic. You can't just pull that out of the archives and just repost it, when it's not actually how you feel. Your audience can feel it. The engagement is different.
Absolutely. And that's all about the energy and the intention and the integrity with which we show up as coaches. Yeah. And one of the things that I've always said to my own clients and lots of other people as well is just because you can do something does not necessarily mean that you should, because sometimes we outgrow things or we want to try different things. And that's okay. And we can't be somebody that is telling our clients to honor their truth and lean into their own expansion if we don't do that for ourselves. And this is why I love that this particular part of the conversation that we're having, because I noticed from your website when I was looking at that before we started the interview today that and this is, I actually don't think it's a small difference. I actually think it is a big difference, which you've already spoken to. And that is, I note on your website that you're calling yourself a life after divorce transformational coach, for both men and women as well. Now, life after divorce coach is different to divorce coach. Yeah. And so thank you for sharing that evolvement with us, because I think that that's a really inspiring thing for other coaches to hear, because you are obviously experiencing considerable success in the divorce coaching realm.
Yes.
But you've been unafraid to continue to grow beyond that. Yes. And I think that's great.
It is a risk, when something is going very well and going successfully, to pivot and to move 100%. I'm not going to say that I didn't have my doubts and reservations if I was doing the right or wrong thing here. I just knew that if I continued to hold on to the business, that I was doing it and doing it in the way that I was, that on the underbelly, I would be losing passion. I would not be enjoying my business. And there is no longevity in this if I'm not enjoying it, if there's no growth in it for me. It has to also give back to me. And, I get this pushback on social media regularly about this authenticity because I'm not traditional in the sense that I don't show up in the suit and I show up authentic to myself, and not everybody is necessarily comfortable with it. And people aren't afraid to tell you about that now, that they think you should be a certain way because they need you to be a certain way. But if I'm going to start doing that to hold on to a business, to attract clients, then there is no magic or positivity or joy in that for me, and my business won't grow. It will collapse underneath that energy. And so that authenticity and staying true to myself, regardless, and you just have to, once you've built one business, I guess you have that confidence that you can do it again. And so it is a test of my own skills, I guess.
Yeah. And growth and evolvement, which I love. Carla, you mentioned before about your book. And in fact, let's say books, because you've published more than one book now, and I believe that there is a journal that is coming out very soon too. I would love for you to share with us what do you think those books have contributed to in relation to your success and business? Do you feel as though they have been pivotal for you in some way? Because I think most coaches believe that there's probably a book inside them.
Yes. So I wrote two books, one in 2021, the second in 2022. I used Kind Press Publishing House here in Australia. She was fabulous. And then I have recently, this year, joined the two books into one. How to Divorce Like a Queen and Move On. We did a bit of a refurb, added a new cover. I added a little bit of my current energy now, because obviously I've grown a lot since when I wrote that first book in 2021. So we gave it a little touch. We didn't want to change the feel and the energy behind it too much. And then we've republished it this year. So technically I've written two books, but this is my third, which is a culmination of the two. They have definitely been a success in my business, but it's hard to measure because they help a client self-qualify if they resonate with me and they want to work with me. So they have become a business card, a very powerful business card that has helped somebody identify with, yes, I love her content, she's going to get me, she will understand me. And so they almost self-qualify as a client to come towards me. So they have been very powerful for that, but also for helping me to identify my own mission and put my own learnings into something in a powerful way. Those books have expanded my own voice and message and helped add to my purpose, by collating everything together in a way like that really helped me see myself too. I've launched into my e-commerce business very recently this year, Divorce Like a Queen. That came about through my own involvement again, just that recognition that I can't keep coaching in the way that I am coaching. Nobody comes to me happy, and so there is a chance that if I keep doing it in the capacity that I'm doing it, that I might burn out. So how can I allow myself to have a bit more creativity and fun? Because at heart I am a creative minded person. That's why I enjoy to have that aspect in my business, and also increase my longevity and reach more with my message. And so I've come to launch an e-commerce business this year, and we are launching with divorce-specific affirmation cards and a divorce-specific journal for women. And I find myself in the space again where something that I thought would have already been out there in the world for the divorcing or separating woman was not. And so we have first movers advantage, just like I did with my book in 2021, because there was no positive content out there for divorcing women in a book form when I launched my book in 2021. And so we find, that sort of destiny kind of sliding doors moment where you launch again with something that you thought for sure would be already out there in the world, and it's not. Somehow you managed to pluck the idea out of the sky and say, yep, I'm doing it, it's mine. And so this is a new start for me now to move into products and other different ways that I can inspire and support women as they're moving on with their life, and in a fun way, in a light way. My work is serious, but I'm not a very serious person, to be honest. And so I have a lot of, kooky, fun ideas that I want to be able to bring that is going to make a woman laugh, or you can gift it to someone and it will make them laugh. And laughter is really an important part of the journey, to be able to see the humour and the lightness in things. And so it's the ability to offer, yes, a serious service in my coaching, but to complement it with something a little bit lighter, which is going to help me have longevity in this business for myself, as well as benefit my clients.
Yeah, I love it. And of course, creating products and e-commerce and things like that is not for everyone, as is even, writing a book, but it certainly is something that holds appeal for some people. And I think it's fantastic that you've followed the breadcrumbs of what lights you up and what brings you joy. And there's no question to me that that is clearly a part of your longevity and your success as a coach as well. You pay really loving, close attention to what you need. And I think there's a lot of medicine in that for all the coaches listening. Carla, I would love to finish up by asking you, because I think that this is such a very, very special part and important part of your coaching success story and journey. And when I say success story, I saw you, and this is of course, financial success is just one part of what we do as business owners. You've all heard Carla talking about joy, laughter, personal expansion for herself, but I saw you recently say, Carla, that your business has generated, close to $1 million over the past decade that you've been working. It's something that's now flourishing and thriving and successful for you. And I would love for you to share with everyone listening, most of whom are going to be coaches or people who are thinking about becoming one, any support, advice, tips, inspirations that you want to share with them, that if they find themselves early in their journey recognizing, okay, I've got some work to do on me here before I think I can really go full-heartedly out there with this and what it is that I want to do to serve, what would you love to say to them?
It's really cliched advice, and I know it's really easy advice to give when you're out of it, But you really do have to just embrace where you are in the now and not have any resistance to that. You know, that you cannot change where you are at. There is a reason why you are where you are. And, you know, we've touched on it earlier in this call, the following of the breadcrumbs, the following of what interested me next. Signing up to Blog Hearted because I had a blog and I wanted to start my own website. Signing up to be a life coach because I found myself surrounded by life coaches. You know, one little breadcrumb after the other continued to lead me on to the next thing very organically, and I didn't question it, I didn't overthink it too much. I really let it be a very intuitive journey, and that's been a test because I lived a very sedentary, unintuitive life while I was married, you know, and so following the breadcrumbs of coming back to me, building a business out of that, it has been a journey of being more soul-led than mind and ego-led, and that's a practice in itself, and it takes time. But the following of the breadcrumbs and what naturally lights you up and interests you is going to be the success in you creating a business that is authentic to you rather than you trying to copy somebody else's business message, somebody else's business model, which then is not authentic. And then, I mean, there's so many things now with ChatGPT and AI, you know, you can present yourself however you wish in the world, even if it's not your own truth. But my personal belief, I don't touch any of those tools, is that it doesn't breed authenticity, and people are resonant with authenticity. And so your journey and the breadcrumbs that it's going to take you to find yourself in an actual business attracting clients is actually part of the work.
You know what, Carla? Sometimes cliches are cliches for a reason.
I'm such a cliche,
right?
Julie. I wish I wasn't.
It's not. No, what I'm saying is I think that sometimes things that are tried and tested and true, or we hear them all the time, are that for a very good reason. Yeah. And what you said there right at the very beginning when I asked you that question around you have to be present to yourself. You have to accept where it is that you are. And if that feels messy and challenging and a bit in a hole, you've just got to be there, and you have to not deny that or bypass it or attempt to gloss it over, but rather to go, okay, this is the reality for me right now. And what do I need to do to, as you say, follow those breadcrumbs and find what it is that's going to bring me back home to myself so I can then keep moving forward with life and this love and passion that I have to help others.
Yeah.
So I love that so much.
A logical timeline. If you look back, there's a logical timeline, a logical pathway to your growth, and you can't skip it. And nobody wants to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Like, you know, everything in the future is more exciting than in the now. And so everybody has somewhere where they're going, where they think they're going to be happier or whatever, you know. But there is a logical timeline to everything, and I think that is like, with hindsight, I have to look back and I can sort of see how everything led to the next thing.
Beautiful. Carla, thank you so much for being with us. It has been an absolute joy to chat with you. Congratulations on your decade-plus long now career and business as an incredible coach. We are so proud of you and thrilled for absolutely everything that you're achieving. And thank you for your beautiful wisdom within the story that you have woven today. It's been a joy to talk to you.
Thank you, Julie.